Find the average rate of change of the function f of x equals 3x squared minus 7 on the interval from 1 to a. Your answer will be an expression involving a. So before I tackle this problem, I wanted to go back to a problem that's very similar and kind of done exactly in the same way as this one. Let's look at the one above. It says, well, I cut it off, but it says that wants you here to find the average rate of change of f of d, which is equal to 2 over d squared, on the interval from 2 to 6. So in this situation, to find the average rate of change, it's equal to the function evaluated at b minus the function evaluated at a over b minus a when the interval was a to b. Okay, so our interval is 2. So RA is 2. So that's why we want to plug in where we see the A, we want to plug in 2. And that's what we've done here below. See, it used to be f of A, now it's f of 2. It used to be A in the denominator, we have 2 in the denominator. Okay, and the same thing what happened in place of the B, they have a 6. So we have gone ahead and we've plugged in where the B is, we plugged in 6, and this is the result here that they got. F of 6 minus f of 2. This is the result they got. You know, the average rate of change was f of 6 minus f of 2 minus 6 minus 2, okay? All right, from there, to find f of 6, what they have to do is plug in 6 for d into the equation. And that results in 2 over 6 squared. So that's where they got this 2 over 6 squared. So substituting in for f of 6, they substituted in 2 over 6 squared. So they rewrote the whole equation, but they replaced f of 6 with 2 over 6 squared. Then they found f of 2, which is plugging in 2 for d, and that became 2 over 2 squared. And so that expression, which is f of 2, so 2 over 2 squared got replaced, or replaced f of 2, okay? And then the bottom, notice this bottom 2 minus 6, 6 minus 2 stayed the same, right? And then you just simplify from here, and then you would be done. Okay, so that would be that problem. Now, this problem is similar. The second problem, the one I really want to solve, is similar. We have an equation, and we have an interval, or I should say a function and an interval. So the only big difference between ours and theirs is that they had a 2 and 6, so those were numbers, and ours is a 1 and an A. But we're going to do exactly the same steps. It's just we're going to have an A in our final answer. And with this answer, we were able, because it's 2 and not a variable, we were able to actually simplify. 2 squared is 4 and stuff like that. But so we're going to have an expression, but maybe we were not going to be able to simplify it quite as much as the one above. By the way, this one is not solved yet completely. We should probably reduce, simplify and stuff more before we get the final answer here, but I won't worry about that. Leave that to you later. Anyways, let's do this one. So first of all, I write out the definition of a rate of change, and that is f of b minus f of a over b minus a. I substitute what I know is my a in where a goes. I could have just started with b, it doesn't matter, right? And so I'm going to rewrite this expression. I'm going to write just so substituting in for A, I'm going to plug in 1. Then substituting in for B, is going to go right here. It's just kind of weird. It's an A and we have an A already. So I probably should have used a different variable for this, but whatever. This is a different variable, okay? But I'm plugging in for A right here and right here, right where the B used to be, okay? So this is what we have. Let me just double check. For A, I substituted in 1, and for the second variable here, which happens to be A, I substituted that in for B, okay? Now, from here, I have to actually plug A into the function. So I plug in the A where the X is, and that becomes 3A squared minus 7. So that's what I'm going to plug in for f of A, 3A squared minus 7. That's what's being plugged in for f of A. I bring this negative sign down from above, and then f of 1, I'm going to plug in 1 in for x, so that's 3, 1 squared minus 7. I put that all in parentheses, all over the A minus 1, that didn't change. Now I'm going to just simplify my expressions and do any calculations that I am able to do. So 3A squared minus 7, I can't simplify that anymore at this moment. But then 1 squared is 1. So I can simplify. That's 3 times 1 minus 7 in parentheses. So all I did was rewrite everything, and all I did was simplify the exponents there. Okay, now I'm going to kind of do the 2 steps, I think, but I'm going to multiply 1 times 3. That is going to be 3 minus 7 is going to be negative 4. You guys okay? So in parentheses here, I'm going to replace everything that is currently there with negative 4. So 3A squared minus 7 minus, I still have it in parentheses, negative 4, all over A minus 1. Then the negative will become a positive, so it'll be 3A squared minus 7 plus 4, all over A minus 1. Now I just simplify in the numerator. It's negative 7 plus 4 is negative 3, so it's 3A squared minus 3, right? Yeah. All over A minus 1. We're using advanced mathematics here. Kind of this, I would say this is a more difficult, this is an involved problem for sure. But in order to make sure this is a rational expression, so it's like a fraction, and if it has a common factor, the numerator and denominator, we need to divide that out to reduce this fraction, which means I want to factor the numerator. So I see there's a 3 common to both, so I can factor that out. It's 3 times A squared minus 1 over A minus 1. Then if you, hopefully you remember from algebra 1, this A squared minus 1, it happens to be, that's a difference of squares. So that factors into A plus 1 times A minus 1 all over A minus 1. And then these are going to cancel, having a common factor in the numerator and denominator cancel. Because like saying like multiply by a minus 1, then divide by a minus 1, we'll just not do any of that. So you just end up getting 3 times a plus 1. Yes, to simplify it just one more step, we could say multiply that back out and say 3a plus 3 is our final answer. And there we go. I think they want you to, I mean, I guess you could have put like, I don't know, you may have been able to put this as an answer, but they typically like you to have everything as simplified as possible. And especially if there's a fraction and you could have simplified and made it not a fraction, they probably would not want you, or a complex fraction, especially, they don't want you to leave your answers in fraction forms if you could simplify it further. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.